In every neighborhood, there's always someone who seems a little too perfect. For Crescent Pines, that person was Darren Black, charming, respected, and quietly brilliant. A beloved high school teacher with a passion for literature and a steady girlfriend named Melissa. To the outside world, Darren was the embodiment of trust, but behind his friendly smile and routine life, something far darker was lurking, something no one could have imagined. What if the person sleeping beside you was hiding a second life? What if the man you thought you knew was capable of chilling, calculated horror? Tonight, we unravel the twisted double life of Darren Black, a man who wore two masks, one of a dedicated educator and the other of something much more sinister. What would you do if you discovered your partner lived a double life, one filled with dark secrets? By all accounts, Darren Black lived a quiet, predictable life. He taught English at Cedar Ridge High School, ran the after-school poetry club, and volunteered at the local animal shelter. His mornings began with coffee and grading papers. His evenings ended with quiet dinners and reruns of old sitcoms with Melissa. Melissa, his girlfriend of 3 years, described him as attentive, warm, and deeply empathetic. They shared a 2-bedroom home nestled in the suburbs, often visited by neighbors who adored Darren for his calm demeanor and dry wit. There was never a reason to suspect anything unusual. Darren avoided late nights, never missed a staff meeting, and spent weekends planning lessons. Even his social media presence was spotless: photos of sunsets, classroom projects, and the occasional birthday dinner with Melissa. Life seemed calm, normal, unremarkable, but sometimes normal is the perfect disguise. And behind Darren's curated life was a truth too horrifying to imagine. It began with a forgotten backpack. One afternoon, Darren rushed out to run errands, leaving his worn leather satchel behind. Melissa, needing her phone charger, rummaged through the bag, and that's when she found it. A second phone. Older. Not his usual model. No case. Just a black device with a slight crack on the corner, buried beneath lesson plans and loose pens. Curiosity gave way to concern. Why would Darren need another phone? Was he cheating? Was he in trouble? Melissa hesitated, staring at the device, but something about it felt wrong. She powered it on. No lock screen, no password, just a strange emptiness. No contacts, only a few recent calls, and one folder tucked in the gallery labeled Sketches. Inside were images of unfamiliar women, each photo time-stamped, some taken in public, some clearly from a distance, and some from much, much closer. But what made Melissa's blood run cold was that many of the women looked eerily similar to her. Same build, same hair, same smile. In that moment, suspicion turned to fear, and fear turned into obsession. This wasn't about infidelity. This was about survival. Melissa waited until Darren was asleep to dig deeper. Each night while he snored softly beside her, she unlocked the second phone, going further into its hidden folders and apps. There were notes, dozens of them. Observations, times, dations. Red coat, 3:12 p.m., bus stop by 5th and Main. Shadowed her to cafe, ordered the same drink. Photos were paired with detailed descriptions, favorite drinks, jogging routes, dog names, even license plates. One folder, chillingly named Reflections, held screenshots from surveillance footage, grainy, distant, but clearly taken from traffic cameras or security feeds. And in many of them, the women bore an unmistakable resemblance to Melissa. She found audio recordings too, whispers, traffic noise, distant breathing, like Darren had been following people with a recorder in his pocket. As she pieced the clues together, Melissa noticed something terrifying. Many of the women in the photos were no longer active on social media. No recent posts, no updates. Digging through local missing persons reports, she matched faces. 3 women, gone within the last year, all with similar appearances, all from nearby towns. Melissa realized with mounting horror, Darren wasn't just watching them, he was targeting them, and she might be next. By daylight, Darren Black was the portrait of stability. At school, students trusted him, parents praised him, and fellow teachers shared coffee in the lounge, none suspecting the monster in their midst. But by night, Darren transformed. Melissa uncovered a hidden journal tucked beneath loose floorboards in the garage. Inside were handwritten entries, meticulous, cold, and deeply disturbing. Darren referred to himself in the third person. The watcher walked behind her for 8 minutes. She never looked back. Another read, Replica number 4 resisted, needed adjustment, learning. There was a clinical detachment to his words, not rage, not remorse, just method. Through the clues, Melissa realized Darren wasn't just stalking, he was rehearsing. Each woman, each disappearance had been part of a sequence, a series, like he was chasing perfection. The contrast was jarring. How could someone who spent his days encouraging students to write with empathy be so void of it himself? He had memorized victims' schedules with the same diligence he used to grade essays. He plotted routes with the precision of a lesson plan. It wasn't a frenzy, it was a craft. Darren lived two lives, each feeding the other. The question was no longer if he was guilty. The question was, how far had he gone? Melissa stopped sleeping. Every free hour was spent chasing breadcrumbs, screenshots, journal entries, victim lists. She created a physical board in their guest room, mapping timelines, routes, and facial matches, like a detective hiding in plain sight. She reached out to one of the missing women's sisters, posing as a true crime blogger. The woman shared tearful details, how her sister Hannah vanished walking home from work. No leads, no suspects. When Melissa showed her a photo she'd found on Darren's phone, the woman gasped. It was Hannah, smiling at a farmer's market, photo clearly taken without her knowing. Melissa's hands shook. This wasn't a theory anymore. She anonymously submitted tips to the police. But without hard evidence or Darren caught in the act, they couldn't move. Darren remained 2 steps ahead, smiling at dinner, grading papers, telling jokes. Melissa planted a voice recorder in his car. She captured fragments, conversations with himself, rehearsals. She's not ready yet. Too soon. Too close. Then one night, Melissa overheard something else. My Melissa. She's the final one. The masterpiece. Terror gripped her like never before. She wasn't just uncovering a pattern. She was the pattern's end. Now, it wasn't just about exposing Darren. It was about escaping him. Alive. Melissa staged the confrontation carefully. She invited Darren to dinner. Just the two of them. Candles. Wine. His favorite meal. She smiled. Laughed. Pretended everything was normal. Meanwhile, her phone was recording from her pocket, and the flash drive with all the evidence sat hidden in her purse, ready to be mailed if anything happened. Halfway through dinner, she asked him, softly, "Do you ever feel like you're not really you sometimes?" Darren paused. The smile faded. For a second, just a flicker, something darker passed over his face. "I think we all have secrets," he said. Melissa met his eyes. "I found the phone." Silence. The air grew thick. Darren leaned back slowly, measured, calm. "So, what did you see?" "All of it." Another pause. Then, disturbingly, he smiled again. "Then you understand, don't you?" She stood up. "I'm not your next project. You won't erase me." He stood too, calmly, like they were discussing weather. "You don't have to be afraid, Melissa. This was always meant for you." She ran, out the front door, down the street, straight into the arms of the police who had been waiting, tipped off by her earlier call. Her plan had worked. Darren was arrested without resistance, his expression unreadable. Inside his home, detectives uncovered more. Trophies, video logs, maps, even disguises, enough to tie him to 5 disappearances. The teacher was gone. What stood before the court was a predator in a professor's clothing. In the days following Darren's arrest, the media descended on Crescent Pines. Shock turned to horror as neighbors watched the man they once trusted dragged away in handcuffs. Melissa moved out of the home they once shared. The memories were tainted, the air too heavy. She spent time in therapy, rebuilding herself, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. But the questions lingered. How long had Darren planned it? Could she have seen the signs sooner? Investigators confirmed links to at least 5 disappearances, with 3 confirmed homicides. 2 others remained missing, their cases reopened. In court, Darren was cold and calculated. He refused to speak in his own defense. His journal, the second phone, and Melissa's recorded conversation painted a damning picture. He was sentenced to life without parole. Melissa became an advocate for domestic vigilance, speaking anonymously at shelters and online forums, warning others of the red flags she once missed. But the nightmares didn't end. Sometimes she'd wake up in a cold sweat, hearing Darren's voice whispering the words she could never forget. "You were the masterpiece." The story of Darren Black forces us to confront a chilling truth. Evil doesn't always look like evil. It wears smiles, holds doors open, quotes poetry, and brings flowers home. Darren wasn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. He was the light in the room, and that's what made him so dangerous. We trust those we love. We build lives around them. But sometimes, we miss the cracks in the mask until it's almost too late. Melissa's bravery, intuition, and persistence saved not just herself, but likely countless future victims. She teaches us that trust should never come at the cost of our own instincts. This case also reminds us that duality exists, that even the most polished surface can conceal a fractured soul beneath. The signs might be small, an unexplained phone, odd behavior, a growing sense of unease, but those signs matter. Trust your gut, ask the hard questions, and never assume you truly know someone just because you love them. What do you think? Was Darren born this way, or did something deeper drive him to create such a twisted second life? Would you have spotted the red flags? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Your insight could help someone else facing a dangerous situation. If you found this story as chilling as we did, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Curell Case Files for more true crime thrillers and real-life mysteries. We release new videos weekly, deep dives into the darkest corners of the human mind. And remember, sometimes the scariest monsters don't hide in the woods. They live right next door.